Everybody for being here today. My name is Nick Masson. I'm the head of product at Avalanche Labs. Very, very happy to introduce these two who have worked very hard in building so many things at Avalanche Labs, but most recently the core wallet. And they're going to talk today about designing for Web3, which is no small challenge. Todd Whatcott and Julia Dwyer.
Awesome, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Julia, and this is Todd. And like Nick said, we're going to be talking about designing for Web3. I'm going to grab my clicker here. Here we go. Yeah, as Nick said, right, we're talking about designing for Web3. We are product designers at Avalanche Labs, like Nick said, most recently working on the core wallet. I work on the mobile side of it, and Julia's on the web side. Let's take a step back and talk about what product designers actually do, right? Some people think maybe it's something like this, right? Make it look pretty. But you can see here my Photoshop skills kind of suck. Like it's more than make it look pretty, right? Maybe we think it's maybe something like this, right? We have to make research, we do research and take that data to make our design decisions. Maybe it's not Einstein level, right? It actually looks something like this, right? More of the design process, where we go through each step, dedicate time to each step to make the right design decisions to get to that final polished, pretty screen. Another part of our job is we have to be able to explain these design decisions. We have to be able to convey an idea from conception all the way through to the final product. And today we want to compare our UX design and designing for Web3 to a story that we love. And that story is The Wizard of Oz. All right? As you know, The Wizard of Oz, one of the most iconic films of all time. There's some great characters in this story and some great lessons that we can learn as designers. And we want to talk about those a little bit today. Just really quickly, we'll go through this, but really quickly, these are strength, brains, having heart, and having courage. And we'll just jump into it.
I get to intro Dorothy, and I'm super keen to do this because I remember dressing up as Dorothy many times for Halloween, and I even sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow at my 4th grade talent show, and I will spare you of that rendition today.
No, sing it.
But for the sake of this presentation, we're going to refer to Dorothy as our user. Without Dorothy, the story and the journey of The Wizard of Oz wouldn't exist, and without our users, everything we do wouldn't exist either. And we remember she's in Kansas, it's familiar, it's home, so we're going to call that Web 2. But there's something missing, which is why she starts dreaming of a place somewhere over the rainbow, or somewhere over the moon, in our case, where troubles melt like lemon drops, and this idea of DeFi is going to hopefully become a mass-adopted notion.
Perfect. And as you remember in the story, Dorothy and Toto are swept away in a tornado, right? Into the land of Oz. And in the movie, if you remember back up until this point, the movie's black and white, right? When Dorothy lands in the land of Oz, which we're comparing to Web3, right? She steps out, it's bright and beautiful and colorful and hopeful, and there's some interesting characters, right? We compare that, yeah, to the world of Web3. And as you know, the first person she meets is Glinda, the Good Witch, okay? We compare ourselves to Glinda, right? She gives Dorothy some direction. She helps her on her way. This is us, our product organization, our developers, our product leaders. We're Glinda in this scenario, right? We take our users, point them in the right direction, and let them on their way. If you remember, another great song that Julie's going to sing at the end is she tells Dorothy to follow the yellow brick road, right? We compare that yellow brick road to Web3 products, all the Web3 products. We're going to talk about what we're doing on Avalanche, obviously, but we know there are other great products, other great chains and platforms out there. And it's really one of the things that I love about Web3 is taking something that's been created and being able to fork or iterate on that and create a better experience. And we're all there to kind of support each other. I love that about this community, and we can just continue to improve and make it a better experience for everyone. Okay, but as with every journey, right, there's going to be some pitfalls, like some scary moments, right? As you remember in the story, there's the Wicked Witch, right? Used to scare me so bad when I was little, like terrible. We compare her to these pitfalls, right? These are some bad UX, bad user experience things that we kind of focus on, right? Number one being our users have to kind of build a new mental model of how this works, right? And our job is to help bridge that gap, that knowledge gap. There's also like a fragmented experience, right? Sometimes you have to go a few places to complete a transaction, and that can be difficult, especially for new people, new users, right? Sometimes there's issues with transparency, right? You don't know exactly what's happening in the process of like a transaction. You might be kind of in the dark at times. And then there's technical jargon, just like learning another language, right? I don't know about you guys, but I felt it when I first started. It was difficult. There's a lot of different things to learn, right? Okay, and so to overcome these pitfalls in the story, Dorothy has some companions, right? Some support. Again, we'll kind of break these down a little bit, but we want to talk about each of these and compare it to some of our design principles that we focus on. That being security, smart and simple design, having the heart to do UX research, and the courage to be innovative. And these are really similar, obviously, to Dorothy's companions, right, on this journey.
So let's start with Toto. Toto is Dorothy's faithful companion. He's there from the very beginning, and so we're going to refer to him as security. Obviously, given the decentralized nature of what we're working with, security has to be at the forefront of kind of what we're thinking when we're using design principles. And so I want to break that down as to how we're protecting users from outside sources, their own human error, we're going to make mistakes as people, and then bad UX and UI. So let's break into first how we protect users from outside sources. Can you go next slide, please? Yep. Thank you. So we remember Miss Gulch. Toto protects Dorothy from Miss Gulch. And I want to talk about how we're protecting our users when it comes to DApp interactions. So basically, there's a point in the approval process when a user has to decide if they're going to give the unlimited access or a custom spending limit. And this is super important that we've implemented these radio buttons to allow the user to do that, because otherwise the DApp will have unlimited access to their funds, and then we're not securing them or creating a good experience for them. So we want to make sure we're protecting them in that sense. And then let's talk about how we're protecting them from their own human error. We remember in the film when Dorothy falls into the pig pen. We want to help our users not do the same thing. So how do we do that? Let's talk about the mnemonic key phrase. We all know this 24-word phrase. I'm sure we don't all love it. And we just basically need to protect our users in this instance because this is the most pivotal part of their onboarding flow, and it's really important that we place a lot of importance on it. So we've implemented a component here that's a checkbox, and the user basically has to self-attest, like, yes, I understand this is self-governed, like if we lose this, we can't retrieve it for you. And so we've gated the primary button, and basically it stays in a deactivated state until they self-attest and hit this component. And then, obviously, we're humans, we get lazy, we want to just check the box, go to the next part. And so we do another layer of like the security cake, essentially. And then, can you go to the next slide, please? Yep. We have the verification phrase. We all know this as well. It's just another layer to basically make sure that we're protecting our users from their own mistakes and et cetera. Let's look at now how we protect our users from bad UX and bad UI. And what we're doing with that is we're using like tried and tested design principles like color theory. So green equals good, red equals bad. We all know these things. We want to make sure that our user feels secure in that process, so we use well-known color theory. And then we also implement things like, these are called snack bars in product design land. And basically what it's doing is it's letting our user know exactly what's happening at what stage of the transaction. So it's pending, it's successful. And then we also give them an icon that links them out to the Explorer. So we're creating a safe experience here. They know exactly what's happening, and we're protecting them in that sense. Let's talk about the Scarecrow. So for the sake of this presentation, we'll call him Simplicity, and we're implementing Simplicity as a design principle here. Again, we're dealing with really complicated technology, and we need not to alienate, obviously, our power users, but we need to simplify the experience so mass adoption can become a thing. And so I'll talk about how we simplify information, terminology, and then also just the mental model. Let's first look at how we simplify information. So we patented this really awesome piece of technology right here called the loading confirmation component. And essentially what this is doing is it's showing the user the number of confirmations on the bridge, time to completion, which network it's coming from, and if you want to expand or collapse with the caret, you can see down to like the network fee as well, which is really important because we're taking different explorers, we're putting it all in one space, and the user has this all simplified in one section. And obviously, depending on the network, it could take up to an hour, so we give them a tertiary link up here that allows them to hide this, and then they can go do other transactions. So we're simplifying the information in that way and bringing it all into one space for our user. Let's talk about how we simplify terminology. I remember when Todd joined, his face looked a little bit like the Munchkins when I started saying things like ERC20s, mnemonic key phrase, and rightfully so, kind of like Todd said, it feels like you're learning a new language sometimes. So to avoid our users looking and feeling like the Munchkins, we need to simplify terminology. How do we do that? So let's go back to the mnemonic key phrase, or how we call it the secret recovery phrase. We looked at what was being done in the space. We had internal chats. We conducted some research with devs, power users, new users, and we felt that we'd landed on secret recovery phrase as a simplified way to approach the mnemonic key phrase. We're not alienating power users, but we're making it more user-friendly for new people entering into the space, which is really important. And those serious, super serious chats with our internal team look like this sometimes. This is the awesome team we get to work with, and I'm really proud to be a part of that team. Let's look at how we simplify terminology in regards to gas. Gas makes sense to a lot of people in like a Web 2 space and just kind of like the real world scenario, but when you take it and put it into Web 3, it can get a little complicated. And so to make the experience just more direct, we went with network fee. It's explicitly saying what it's relating to and what it's doing, and so we wanted to simplify it in that way. Now let's look at how we simplify the mental model. Hopefully everybody went to Nick's keynote, but if you didn't, he got to reference what we've been working on for a really long time, which is this idea of core. And the whole team has basically come up with this concept. I know Nick has spent many sleepless nights working on how to take this fragmented experience and put it all in what we're calling the command center. So essentially we're bringing swap, send, receive, bridge, all of these transaction types into one space and removing that fragmentation for our user, which I think is gonna be awesome, and I hope everyone likes it when we launch it. And so we're essentially using all of those methods to just simplify the experience for a user and empower them through the Web3 experience.
Awesome. So next up, they meet the Tin Man, right? If you remember when they find the Tin Man, he's rusted in place, right? They have to give him oil so that he can break free. And if you remember, he needed a heart, right? We compare the heart to our UX research, excuse me. I feel, to me, UX research is really the heart of all of our product design decisions. And our research in Web3 does look a little bit different than my Web 2 background, right? We do use a lot of the same strategies and things that you do in Web 2, such as like user interviews, A/B testing, and surveys. But we have that anonymous factor that some of our users want to remain anonymous, and that's great. So recently we set up a Telegram channel where we can chat with our users anonymously and just provide that for them. We'll make a little plug for that. If you want to join the Telegram UX research channel, like find us and we'll get you on there. We would love to talk to everyone. Let's take a look at some of our actual research that we did recently for a watch list feature that we were working on. This is just some of the things that we have gone through. We went through some competitive analysis, just looking at what everybody's doing, did some user interviews and just taking notes, pulling those little pieces of information from those interviews, and then just analyzing everything. And from that, our team, we really like to do this exercise called Design Studio. This is something we do pretty frequently, and we pull in anybody that wants to join us. This is devs, product, whoever wants to be a part of this. And we all get together and just sketch out as many ideas as we can in a timed, kind of a timed space. And then go through together as a group and kind of decide what we like best and what we want to kind of make sure that we have in the product. And from that, we've been able to actually find some really cool ideas. So you can see the watch list here kind of in higher fidelity, coming all the way through our research to sketches and ideation, all the way through to high fidelity, which was really fun. The final companion that they meet on the journey, if you remember, is the Cowardly Lion, right? And for the Cowardly Lion, we kind of compare this to those Web 2 design principles that I talked about. These are things that are safe, proven methods that we base our entire design system on, right? These are things like meeting users' actual needs, like knowing what problems we're solving and meeting those needs. This is also using a design process, right? Having clear hierarchies so that people can navigate easily, being consistent throughout the entire experience, thinking about accessibility and using simple language like Julia mentioned. These are things that we really try to focus on, but at times with Web3, we found that we really have to have that courage, right? We have to have the courage, like the cowardly lion, to kind of step outside that and be innovative. Try some new things, and it's kind of scary. It's fun and scary at the same time. So if you remember in the story, these characters were able to make it to the Emerald City. They were able to use their strengths, these characteristics that we talked about, to make it through that journey. And these are, like I said, these characteristics that we try to focus on as designers, because we really want to allow our users to be self-sufficient, to be able to get on that yellow brick road and make it through their journey without any help.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Todd was saying, it's kind of a very pivotal point in the film when they come to the end and they realize that they have all these things within them, and that's essentially what we're doing just with all of these design principles. We want to pull back the curtain on the inefficiencies of Web 2 systems, and we want to show our users that they are empowered enough to use these Web 3 products as long as we implement all these great design principles to help them along their journey. And I just want to take a moment to kind of reflect on our whole journey. I remember when it was Nick, Danny, and I, a team of 3, coming up with this concept of what we were calling AvaOS back in the day. And we started with a wireframe like this, and then we moved up to something that looked a little bit more mid-fidelity, but still kind of a mess. And then another product that never made it to life, but it's just a different iteration of that, was this. And now to kind of what we have today, which is this refined product. And obviously with product design, you're never really done. You're implementing research, and you're always kind of up-leveling what you have. But I'm just super proud of our entire journey, and it wasn't easy. But yeah, and on that, I'd like to make the video that Todd created.
Yeah, we'll just close giving you a quick look at kind of all of these interfaces all in one place really quickly, and we want to thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a second for any questions. If you, yeah, we can pass this back there.
Thanks. What are the common UX pitfalls that you see that a lot of DeFi platforms doing over and over again? And kind of why do you think that they are continuously doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, so yeah, the question was what are a lot of common pitfalls that we're seeing in other platforms? I feel like this space is really young, right? And a lot of people are moving really quickly through some very complicated processes. I feel like what I'm trying to work on, and what I think our team is trying to work on, is just making that simple, right? I think right now things are still very complicated. If you're not very knowledgeable about the space, it's very difficult to kind of break into, and that's something that we're really trying to kind of simplify. Yeah.
I also would say, like, I think just due to lack of resources, and I think putting design at probably like a lower tier in the space, just given that there's a lot of smart people like devs working in the space, I think sometimes they put development before design, and then that kind of creates problems because you don't have, like, it doesn't have to be pretty, obviously, like kind of as we're making that joke. However, it does have to be somewhat visually appealing enough for people to understand it and move through the products like as seamlessly as possible. And so I think when there's not enough attention to that UI being up-leveled, it can just be complicated and look more like dev built than design built.
Hi, so my question is, how do you integrate user education in your design process, and what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's great. I love that. I feel like that's really one of our main jobs is educating users and helping them kind of bridge that knowledge gap. So far, it's been just trying to simplify, like I mentioned. But I feel like we've talked about that actually, like really getting into and creating a space where people could go and really want to like learn and get into this. Like I could send this to my mom who's watching maybe. And she could read through it and be able to complete a transaction, right? Yeah, if you want to.
I think we also, like, wherever we can, we like to use information icons so people can hover and then see like a tooltip to also understand exactly what that terminology is or what that part of the process is. And I'd say that's another way that we're doing it. And we've also talked about whether we want to gate the experience. So when a user comes in, they kind of get like these tutorials almost before they then enter into the wallet. So that's another thing we've discussed about implementing.
Hi.
Great question.
First, a little question. I don't understand. That you have designed a full wallet like MetaMask?
Yes. Yep.
Well, in that case, your kicking MetaMask ass is looking much better. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Second, I'm not a UX. I'm more from a smart contract designer. The main pain point I see on MetaMask is when a transaction gets stuck and the user keeps sending
Right.
transaction, and the first one is not processed. And the first reaction of the user is, I get scammed. How do you handle that particular problem? That, from my point of view, is the most problematic thing to handle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the people run to Twitter, run to Telegram,
Right.
and if you don't have a lot of guys answering that Telegram, and that costs a lot, you are in a big problem.
No, that's,
so how you solve that particular problem?
that's a great question, right? We have to be very clear about the transaction, the point of the transaction, where it's at, right? I think, like I mentioned about transparency, we have to be transparent about where the transaction is and what we know at the time, right? Because, yeah, people just assume if something does go wrong that they've been scammed or whatever and run to Twitter, and it's a big thing, right? So I think being very clear about the process and where it's at in the process is key. I don't know if you have anything
Just
there.
like those snack bars that we were showing with the swap failed or swap pending, or the like basically every aspect of the transaction and having the link to take them out. I think that's how we're dealing with that process.
Thank you. I repeat, you're kicking MetaMask ass.
Thank you.
Hi, I agree completely kicking ass. So congrats.
Thank you.
So for me, and when I ask this thing to my mother also, it's like, well, at least in my bank, I know where my money is. And of course she doesn't, but she thinks she does. But one of the main things that people are afraid of is these mistakes. No, I send something to the wrong wallet, it's gone forever, and now, I lost all this money. Do you have, or are you thinking of an undo button, in lieu of having an insurance program that would replicate the financial institutions? But is there a way to maybe give that to the user to say, like, in this panic mode between stock and non-stock, undo or pause or something like that? Do you think that's a possibility in the future?
I think it's a great idea. I'm not sure like how possible it is. Being fairly new to like that process is, I would say, I think it's a great idea. Absolutely. Anytime you're dealing with like financial information, having that kind of safety net, I think is a great idea. Yeah.
I would add to that. I would say we have, like, in the approval process, like when you're on the extension and you're trying to interact with a dApp, you can reject it. So that's kind of the last point where the user can do that. We don't at the moment have an implementation where you can, once you've sent it through, can undo it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.